Okay, so this is day 2 of our foldables for our 3D figures. So for today, we're going to have 4 different shapes. So we want to start off the same way. We want to take our paper and fold it hot dog style. So sheet of paper, we're going to fold it hot dog style. Like this. And then we're going to want to put 4 cuts in it because we have 4 different shapes. So again, we're not going to cut all the way through. I'm going to try my best to even this out. I don't know that it's going to work though. Okay, so we have our four flaps here. And so at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen, and I'm still going to trace the shapes with y'all. But you're going to take your little green, or mine's green. Yours is whatever color you printed it off on if you're doing this at home because you were absent. And you're going to trace these shapes onto each one of the flaps. So let me share my screen and I will somewhat do that with y'all. Okay, so I kind of have it worked up here where it looks like that page is behind each one of my flaps. So now we need to trace. So for the first shape, let's go and trace. Let's just trace all of them in there, and then we'll talk about what they are. So I'm going to kind of pause the recording, get my tracing done, and then I'll resume. If you're watching this on the video, you may want to pause the video, get your tracing done like you see on the screen, and then resume the video. Okay, so I have all of my shapes traced. So now let's talk about them. These are the outsides of my flaps. These are the fronts of the flaps. So this first one, what is this first shape called? It's called a cylinder. First one's a cylinder. Okay, so for a cylinder, what do we need to find before we can plug into our formulas? Well, first thing we need to know is the radius. So, we need to know the radius, which that's what R is. Then we need to know the height, which we're going to use for H. And then we need to know the area of the base. Or that's that capital B. So now our base on a cylinder, what shape is it? I mean, here's the base. You can do top or bottom. What shape does that make? That makes a circle. So the area of our base for a cylinder is just pi r squared. Okay, so let me add some dimensions here. That way we kind of have an idea of what we're dealing with. So for this piece, it's going to be 3 inches. This piece is going to be 8 inches. Okay. So let's see. Now that we know what we need to find, let's find those things. First, our radius. Well, if I look up in the picture, radius is 3 inches. Then we need the height. The height is 8 inches. And then we need the area of the base, which is pi r squared. And we're going to do this in terms of pi. So pi times 3 squared gives you 9 pi inches squared. Let me put this down here. Okay, so now let's find our surface area, our lateral area. It's 2 pi RH. So 2 pi times 3 times 8. So give us a lateral area of 48 pi inches squared. Then total surface area. That's 2 pi RH plus 2 pi r squared. So 2 pi, radius is 3, height's 8, plus 2 pi times 3 squared. So gives a total surface area of, let's see, it's going to be 48. That's 9. Let's use 18. 48 plus 18 is 64 pi inches squared. And then we need the volume. It's going to be big B times H. So we're going to have 9 pi times 8, which is 72 pi inches cubed. Let me do this. Okay, sorry guys, I am just trying to get my ink positioned to where it will look good. There we go. That looks better. somewhat. Okay, so next shape. Next shape, we have a cone. So what do we need to find for a cone? Well, we still need the radius. We still need the height of the cone. We need the slant height. And then we need the area of the base. Which is our capital B. Now, if we look at our cone, our base is in the shape of a circle. So the area of our base would just be pi r squared. So let's find the items we need to find surface area and volume. First thing we want, well, I guess we need some numbers first. That's what we need first. Okay, so for our cone, what do we need to find? We need the radius. But before we get the radius, I suppose we need some dimensions. So let's see. Let's add those. This is going to be 3 yards. That's 4 yards. And this is 5 yards. Okay, so now let's get the 4 items we need. First, the radius. So if we look at our picture, the radius is 3. Write it down. Then we need the normal height. Normal height is 4. It's the one that goes vertical and intersects the radius at a right angle. So 4 is your vertical height. And we need slant height. Slant height is 5 yards. And then we need the area of the base, which since the base is a circle, this is going to be pi r squared. So pi times 3 squared gives you 9 pi yards squared. So there we have all that we need so we can now plug into our formulas. So first, lateral area. The pi RL so pi times the radius of 3, the slant height of 5. And we're going to do this in terms of pi, so do not type pi in the calculator. So it can give us 15 pi yards squared. Then we have total surface area. It's going to be pi RL plus pi R squared. So pi times 3 times 5 plus pi times 3 squared. Which means total surface area is 24 pi yards squared. And last but not least, we have volume. The volume is 1/3 the area of the base times the height. So 1/3 times 9 pi times 4. It's going to be 12 pi yards cubed. Okay, so there's everything to do with cones. Now, let's work on our next shape. Next shape looks like a ball. That is called a sphere. So for a sphere, what do we need to find? Well, this one's kind of easy. All we need to find for a sphere is the radius, which we call R. That's it. So let's see. Let's say this radius is 6 meters. I wanted to find surface area and volume for a sphere. Well, first let's do what we need to find. We need to know the radius. If we look in our picture, the radius is 6 meters. So now let's get surface area. It's going to be 4 pi R squared. So it's going to be 4 pi times 6 squared. Which would be 144 pi. Meters squared. There's our total surface area. Then we need the volume. For a sphere, it's the formula is 4/3 pi R cubed. That's going to be 4/3 pi times 6 cubed. In our calculator, we would type everything in but the pi. So 4/3 times 6 cubed gets you 288 pi meters cubed. That's our volume. So like we've talked about before, for a sphere, there's only 2 things you can find: surface area, total surface area, and volume. Because there's no way to say, I just want the sides of the ball. Think of like a basketball. I just want the sides of it. Well, it's round everywhere. There's no sides. So only the total surface area and volume. And then our last three-dimensional shape, it's half of a sphere. We call a half of a sphere a hemisphere. So what do we need to find on the hemisphere? Well, it's just like a sphere. It's easy in the sense that all we need to find is the radius. Let's come up here. Let's add a dimension here. We're going to say this is 9 feet. So let's come down here and try to solve it. So our radius, we just wrote it in there. It's 9 feet. Now for our formula that we're going to use for total surface area, we said it was 3 pi r squared. So 3 pi times 9 squared. In terms of pi, that's going to get you 243 pi feet squared for the total surface area. And then we've got volume. Now, the easiest thing to do, it's not the way I taught this initially in class, but the easiest thing to do is do the 4/3 pi r cubed like you would for a sphere. But since this is half of a sphere, we've got to divide it by 2. So let's do that. 4/3 pi times 9 cubed. And then we're going to divide everything by 2. I'm going to do the top first. So on top, you would have 972 pi divided by 2. $972 divided by 2 is 486 pi. And we're going to be in feet cubed. That's how you do the volume of a hemisphere. Okay, so we have completed our foldable. When you get through, it should look like this. So we got our cylinder. You open it up. Well, y'all can't even see that because I'm still sharing my document. Hang on. There we go. So we've got our, we started with, over here. Started with the cylinder. You open it up. There's all of our info on cylinders. Then we went on to cones. All of our info on cones. Then we have spheres. And then last but not least, we had hemispheres. So this is how your completed foldable should look. Okay, so the assignment's also posted. And if you were in class, you got a copy of it. So if you have questions, please ask me. But remember, you were created to do wonderful things, and you are awesome. Always believe.